Welcome back to the Grit Culture. Before we get this video started, make sure you hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and make sure you leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know, how you feel about my stance I'm about to take on this. But let's get into it. The topic that everybody's talking about is this Supreme Court ruling. Now, it hasn't been made official, but a draft came out, which is something that's said to be unprecedented. Hasn't happened in more modern times. As basically it was leaked, showing the different officials and the decision that they're about to make. Now, I do question the timing. My first thing was like, hey, why of all of a sudden is this coming out? Is this conversation being had, and is this happening right now? Now, there's a few theories because, Pfizer leaked some more documents. There's a theory that people are saying that, it could be to distract from that. I don't know. You can, we take in so much information already. I don't see why you can't have both, ingrained into your brain. But people do get distracted easily. This society. But let's talk about it. So, Roe versus Wade, the Supreme Court, they're voting to get rid of Roe versus Wade. Is this something that I agree with? You may be shocked by the answer that I have versus on my stance. Now, my stance is I'm pro-choice. But I do believe Roe versus Wade should be abolished. Now, let me explain why. Let me just do some driving. But I do agree that abortion is, you're killing a life, right? You're killing a life. As far as we know, as far as our knowledge of understanding of, life and the universe or whatever it is, our limited understanding, you're taking the life out of your belly. Now, just because it's inside of you doesn't mean anything. It's like inside of you versus, what's the difference? It's still, in that pregnancy period, but it's still a life. So, if there was any difference, if there was no difference, then it shouldn't be a problem for you to take out a baby once you've had the pregnancy. Because, it's yours if that's what you want to go off of. When we talk about, when women talking about it's my body, my choice, and all of that, which I find ironic because given the conversation that was being had during, COVID and everything like that, that completely got thrown out the window. And I said this was going to come back around and the hypocrisy was going to take place. And sure enough, here it did. By many people. So they didn't care about my body, my choice then. Now I was able to, kind of, ease back and move kind of toward the direction in pro-choice just because of the COVID situation, because a lot of people were talking about how other lives will be affected and different things like that, even though it's not directly affected based off your decision. And then on top of that, the reason why those certain restrictions are put in place on COVID, and I'm talking about restrictions against the government, not what they're placing upon you. The restrictions, their restriction of power that they're supposed to be able to have, those are there just in case something like the conversation that they're having now, currently, about lab leak theories and different things like that. If you haven't read all of that, and not just that, but history tells you otherwise also. There's plenty to go off in history to show that they've had man-made viruses and different things like that. So this is why you don't allow them to take advantage of you within that manner. Is there casualties that could come from it? Yeah, there is. But it's just one of those risks. It's just one of those risks, because what could entail is a lot bigger. You know, it's a lot larger picture. You know what I'm saying? So with that, I was able to concede a few things when it came to, the whole pro-life, pro-choice conversation. And not only that, it gets complicated. And with pro-lifers, one thing I ask pro-lifers, even with that, you see how bad the economy's going and where we're headed, how worse it's gotten. And a lot of them are just talking about, I understand you don't want to take a life and you want, have a kid have the chance to live their life, but what are you going to do to make sure that this kid is brought up in a healthy environment and given the proper tools it needs to succeed? Because a lot of times that doesn't happen, especially with kids who come up in that environment, and just going to adoption and stuff like that isn't the answer. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of, nobody's gonna love you like your parent and stuff like that. So, what are you gonna do? What do you got in, the system is already flawed. It fails so many children that we have here already. So, what are you willing to do? And then you talk about that, y'all always talking about how much of a burden and having to take care of other people's responsibilities and stuff like that. So let them make the decision on this one. I sit back and I say, hey, I leave it between them and God. If God's real. A lot of y'all may not subscribe to the concept of God. I do. And if there's a judgment day, let them deal with that. Let them deal with that themselves. But this is the decision that they gotta live with. But I still believe that you are killing a life. You are stripping a human being of them having a life. I don't think that they're gonna come back in another shell or something like that. Now, could that be a possibility? Maybe, but it's not what I believe, and I could be wrong. You could be wrong. Who knows? Nobody has the correct answer to that. Nobody can answer that who's walking this earth right now. But there's a lot to it. And I'll get to my reason why I think Roe versus Wade should be abolished, right? Not only that, it not only affects, because a lot of them people are making it a woman thing, but shit, it affects the dudes too, because shit, I'd like to, I probably have to say so myself that a lot of times it's the dudes who are trying to advocate for the chick to have an abortion when she's trying to keep the baby. He like kill that little motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? So y'all hurting the dudes out here too. That shit. And they talking about down here in Texas, talking about taking whoever drives the chick, taking her to jail, and then whoever drives them to the clinic, taking them to jail too. It's like, that's fucked up, man. Like I said, you got to leave that between them and God. It's just one of those things that you just, you got to create that distinction from, we set the parameters. Not everything is, absolute, but the parameters have been set that is one of, what am I trying to say? If they're in the belly and at a certain, certain period of pregnancy, then, it's just abortion. It's still killing, it's still murder, but it's state sanctioned. It's sanctioned and generally accepted. Nobody's gonna really lose sleep versus the baby being born. It's just like the difference between, let's talk about, like, say the age of consent and stuff like that. We've set the parameters to be 18 years old. What everybody agrees with in society and what feels good, and even though you got a lot of people who feel different, and even different states have different laws, but even within those laws, if you in certain places, I think in Illinois, I think it might be 16 or something like that. Still, if you see an older dude messing with a 16-year-old, you're going to think that dude's crazy. And, you know, it's going to be a problem. Think he a pedophile or some type of stuff. So it's the same way with this. It's just that straight barrier between from 17 to 18. Wait till she turns 18. That's simple. Anything before that, it's a problem, bro. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, you leave it at that. It's the same way with this. It's just we go off our own understanding and things that we have set, and it is what it is. Now, why Roe versus Wade, given that how, you know, my stance and everything that I have on it, why Roe versus Wade should be abolished? Because simply it's unconstitutional. Because Roe versus Wade, despite what anybody thinks, abortion is not a human right. For the simple fact, human right falls under anything that doesn't affect the next person. If it doesn't affect the next person or is not dependent upon the abilities of the next person, where it's solely reliant on you, then yeah, it's a human right. But somebody else gets affected. There's a life lost. You're killing a baby within this. So it's not a human right. It's not a human right at all. And I've seen people making terrible comparisons, talking about guns and stuff like that, and they allow guns. That's a horrible comparison. Because first of all, guns don't kill people, people kill people. And a person has to pull the trigger and make the act to kill a person. So it's two completely different things from abortion. Now, in the sense that they go and kill the person, it's murder. So then you can link it within that frame or whatnot. And they'd have to kill a person in cold blood. Then you got, you know, cold-blooded murder or whatnot. You can link it to that. You can, you know, I can see the comparison then, but until the person does that, and if a person's defending themselves or something like that, which they're primarily for, there you go. That's what it is. So you can't link guns directly to abortion. Because abortion is abortion. Abortion is tantamount to murder. In that case, I mean, shit, you could say knives or something, like, you know, you could say knives, you could say many things when it's you're talking about the murder aspect of it. No, that's a whole different conversation. So, given that it's not a human right, it's a privilege, because it's something that's agreed upon, and it's something that, you know, they basically different states allow. Now, because it's not presented, there's no absolute manner to it. It's a flexibility in the way that it's talked about, in the way that people see it. It's way too flexible. There's no absolute nature to it. So with that being said, it has to be framed. It's not something that could be framed within a human rights, something like that. It's nothing that's being protected constitutionally. It's not a personal property type of deal, because you're affecting somebody else. That baby has the right to life also in that case. People are just skipping over that. They can, you're killing, you're taking another human's life against their will, no matter what it may be, or, you know, what may have led up to it. So this is something that should be solved in a democratic process, more likely, which would mean through the state, through the election process, the democratic process in the state, which would take place on the, you know, whether it's local or the state elections or whatnot, and you vote that person in, because it's not a human rights issue. Like I've always said, I just made a video talking about how human rights should never be leveraged through democracy. This is not human rights, so this is something that should be leveraged. Something that should be leveraged and agreed upon, and, you know, agreed upon by the state. Now, what happens with Roe v. Wade and why it's unconstitutional, because it goes against the 10th Amendment, and it doesn't allow the state to make that decision, especially under the, knowing that it's not a human right. If it was a human right or something that was fundamental, a natural right, then that's one thing, that even the state would have to follow that. But because it's something that's so flexible in nature within the conversation, the state has that power to make that decision. And so the state leader would have to come to that whatever conclusion people want in that. And people got to follow by that. Now, not every state, just because Roe v. Wade is gone, that doesn't mean that every state is going to follow suit. You may have states that do, and there's going to be states that don't. They have different leaders, have different ideologies. There's a lot more democratically run states than Republic run states. So you got, y'all can just move there. It's just one of those things. Y'all can just move there. But yeah, it's unconstitutional, man. It's something that you can't do. It's something that you really can't do. I don't think a lot of people are gonna understand what I'm saying, and maybe because I'm driving, so I'm not really able, concentrating on the road and trying to relay the message to y'all. So I'm hoping y'all understanding what I'm getting at with this. But yeah, just read your Constitution. Also, and like I said, I go from both sides. People talking about religion and what their belief is and incorporating, you got senators or whatnot trying to incorporate their beliefs into the decision. They're completely wrong, because the First Amendment says you're supposed to have a separation of church and state, because there's nothing that's concrete about most religion. Now, anything could be made a religion of, but like I said, you're not supposed to incorporate religion or anything within legislation or anything. It's got to be based on something that's practical and absolute. And so that's completely out of line. You can't do that. Sorry about that. I'm in the process of getting my car fixed putting it in the shop real quick so they can get it all fixed up. I'm gonna put some gas in it before I do that. Been running it dry. But yeah, it's a lot of people aren't gonna understand this stuff. Feel free to ask questions. I know a lot of people are gonna disagree, but it's like Dick Gregory said, the truth doesn't have to be validated by your ignorance. The reason the 10th Amendment is there, and like I said, the government, they basically wiped their ass with the Constitution. The Constitution, when I bring up the Constitution and all of this stuff, is basically not only because something like the Bill of Rights should be adopted in other societies and moving forward because of the evidence that supports it, but not only that, but these are the parameters that the people who are empowered that they've put out. So what I'm doing is holding a mirror to them, basically exposing them, so you can see who you're dealing with, that these are people who don't follow their own rules, but they expect you to follow the rules. And they can't even follow the parameters or the restrictions that they've been held to. So don't lose sight of that, and you want to start talking about a Constitution and, it's not for us and all of this. You missing the whole entire point of what is being said. So like I said, from the beginning, from when they made Roe versus Wade and all of that, it was completely unconstitutional. They did not have the power to do something like that. They did not have that power at all. It was on the states to make that decision. So now what you have, when they implemented that, there was an abuse of power, because now they're saying, when a state is saying, well, we're outlawing that and that can't happen. Well, now all these people, all they're doing is going over the states' heads, and they're going to the federal level, going to the Supreme Court, and then getting it overturned. And so that takes away the state's power. Like I said, it's made so power can't be centralized to the federal government. Get some variety here in the states, and people can, you can have a lot of people can make their choices on where they want to live and all type of stuff. And like I said, those are the parts that can be run democratically. Like I said, people want to protect democracy and different stuff like that. This is the perfect time. But like I said, democracy gets circumvented because of lack of information or misrepresentation of information. That's simple. So anyway, let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section, and we'll address this some more. If there's anything I forgot to address or anything, hopefully you understand where I'm coming from with this. Like I said, pro-choice. I'm against Roe versus Wade, and yeah, there it is, man. So ain't a lot to really be. It's just something to keep people divisive, and like I said, and have people all up in arms for no damn reason. But it is what it is. Everybody's entitled to their opinion or whatnot. Like I said, because it's your opinion doesn't make it the truth. And if you're gonna have opinion, please let it be based in factual information. Till then, it's the Grit Culture. I'll holler at y'all later.